Welcome to Ageless Fury. Randall Cox here. Hey, look, today we're going to talk about building muscle and adding strength, toning our bodies, and burning fat. Hey, if this is your first time here, start by subscribing now. Let's get those notifications turned on so that you don't miss anything. So, for those of us that want to, look better and feel better, I can tell you right now, building muscle is an excellent goal for that, okay? Muscle is the key to burning fat. So for those of you that are looking to, lose weight, okay, this is an avenue. We're going to define that a little bit more. But the one thing that we do need to define is the difference between a fat loss versus a body weight loss. So fat loss is exactly that. You're burning fat, okay? Whereas when you're in a body weight loss, okay, that's going to be a combination of fat and muscle loss. And ideally, that's not what we want. We want to lose the fat, but we want to keep that muscle. Now look, not only having, more muscle, look, that's not only going to give you the body that you desire, but it comes with a whole host of other health benefits like, improved heart health, right? Stronger bones. Now, building muscle, look, it's a slow process, okay? Especially, look, if you jump into this thing with this huge calorie surplus thinking, building more muscle while losing weight, well, I can tell you right now, you're probably going to be disappointed. Now, look, it is possible to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, but it takes time with your muscle building process and doing it gradually. But trust me, with patience, you will reduce the body fat and you will add muscle. Now, for those of you where, your goal is weight loss, I want you to keep in mind that fat and muscle, they weigh the same. So if you lose 5 pounds of fat, you gain 5 pounds of muscle, you're going to weigh exactly the same, but trust me, you will be more lean. Now, for the most optimal results here, weightlifting versus cardio is going to be your best bet. You want to focus on weight training, 3 to 5 times a week. You want to make sure that you're increasing the weight or the intensity so that you are consistently progressing. Now, look, under a progressive approach, okay, one key is your time under tension. And I stress not just doing half reps, okay, to lift a certain amount of weight, okay? You need to use a full range of motion, okay? Your time under tension, okay? That's a key here, right? That's what's going to help, maximize that muscle growth and give us the results that we need. Now, traditionally, you're working in a 6 to 12 rep range, okay? And that's thought to, lead to that hypertrophy training in that muscle size, that muscle gain. Now, that's kind of, in between that, what's defined as maybe, strength training and endurance training. And a lot of you have heard about, muscle strength, muscle endurance, and found yourself wondering, okay, well, what exactly is the difference between the two? Okay, so your muscle strength, okay, this is a max load that muscle can move by performing a 1 rep max, okay, of the heaviest weight that a person can lift. Now, I typically define strength training in a 1 to 5 rep range. Okay, now when we get into muscle endurance, okay, this is the amount of repetitions that an individual can do and the amount of fatigue that they're going to show in doing that number of repetitions. Now, I typically define endurance training in a 13 to 20 rep range. Now, of course, everyone has their definitions, of course, but, for my training, these are the rep ranges that I use. Now, I'm in my hypertrophy training, probably 90% of that workout, but, that might include, 1 or 2 sets of, 4 to 5 reps and maybe 3 or 4, sets in that 15 rep range, especially, when I'm just starting out and getting those muscles warmed up. And if you're trying to improve your strength, so, you might want to have 4 to 6 sets of, some more compound exercises, and that might be, maybe it's a free bar squat, a deadlift, or a bench press, right? That should help you out on that path. And for muscle endurance, again, that could be, 4 to 6 sets of, those same compound exercises, but the balance of your workout should be in that 6 to 12 rep range. Now look, muscle strength and endurance, hey, they're both very important to focus on, and you might focus on one more than the other, but obviously that split is going to be contingent on what your goals are. Now, of course, by, increasing your muscle strength, you're going to increase your muscle endurance as well, but it's just not going to be at the same level as when you're doing that full-on endurance training. And the same is going to hold true on your muscle endurance, okay? There's also going to be, strength gains along the way. Now, look, our bodies adapt to the type of training that we do. So, look, if you're doing 4 reps of a flat bench press, week after week, trust me, eventually your body is going to start to plateau, okay? This is where training variation is going to come into play. Now, from here, you could move on to, say you want to incorporate an incline bench press, right? You might do that for a few weeks, or you can incorporate that incline bench with the flat bench on alternating workouts to give yourself a little bit of variation. Now, and I want to point out that the intensity of your training matters far more than, the duration of those workouts. And meaning that, look, it's possible to achieve the same results in less time as long as you're working those muscles to fatigue. Okay, your food intake is a huge part of this equation. Now, of course, every body is different, but let's assume 2 pounds of muscle gain per month. Okay, now, when we're in weight loss mode, okay, we're focused on being, calorie deficient in consuming fewer calories than we burn. And for some of you, look, that may be your course of action, but our focus here is on adding muscle and losing fat. So technically, I want your weight to remain the same. So for every pound of muscle that we gain, we want to lose a pound of fat. So say at 200 pounds today, 30% body fat equates to 60 pounds of fat. 12 months from now, look, we're still going to weigh 200 pounds, but after that 12-month, transformation of what we're calling our fat to muscle, our body fat is now 36 pounds at 18% body fat. Okay, yes, you're still going to weigh 200 pounds, but at 18% body fat, and trust me, you are going to look and feel 100% better. Another thing to keep in mind here is you start to add muscle, your body's going to start to burn that fat more efficiently. So maybe in months 1 and 2, maybe that's only like a 1 pound, transformation. But once we get to that month 11 and 12, that transformation number, that could be, closer to 3 or 4. Trust me, all the correct training in the world will never overcome an incorrect eating plan. And I want you to remember, MEMC, make every meal count, okay? So where does a chocolate donut rate in that equation, okay? Well, that would be incorrect. Yes, 270 calories, 15 grams of sugar, okay, versus say a red apple, right? 95 calories and 0 sugar. Now that would be correct. Now, okay, of course, there's not much of a correlation here, but I think you understand my point. So yes, eating right is a very key element in that muscle building process. You want to support the growth of that muscle, right? So it comes down to, well, how much food should I eat? Well, first you need to ensure that you're eating enough food, as gaining muscle needs fuel, but not so much that if you go over your calorie requirement, that those excess calories don't end up being stored as fat. So for me, say my daily standard is 2,800 calories. Now I use a very simple formula, 13 calories for every pound of body weight. So at 215 pounds, I'm consuming 2,800 calories per day. Now, there are 2 parts here, okay? Because, first, as I get to the end of that workout, how do I feel? If I'm really fatigued, if I'm tired, then, there's a chance that maybe I'm not getting enough calories. But I need to let that play out for a few days, kind of see if it gets better. And, if I get into a week or maybe that second week and I'm still feeling tired and fatigued, as I get to the tail end of the workout, then, I might juice that daily calorie intake with, maybe another 100 calories. And, back to our second avenue is the scale. Okay, Remember, we're not looking to add or reduce our body weight, okay? We want our weight to remain the same. But, again, this is one of those things that, comes with a little bit of trial and error, so you want to manage that scale accordingly. Now, we start talking about our macros in terms of our protein, carbohydrates, and our fat intake. Now, look, there are a million different theories out there, but I like to keep my protein at about, 25 to 30% of my calorie intake. Now, some people might say that's a little bit low, but hey, that's what has worked for me. So at 215 pounds, I'm going to be in a range of about 175 to 210 grams of protein per day. That's going to equate to, let's call it 770 calories. Now I have about 2,000 calories left. I like to keep my fat at about 20%, so let's call that 560 calories from fat, and that's going to equate to 60 grams of fat per day. And don't be overly concerned if that number sways a little bit, either direction. The main thing is the quality of the fat that you're consuming, okay? So, one slice of pizza from Pizza Hut, okay, that can have as much as 24 grams of fat. Okay, so look, you don't want to eat that. All right, so now I have 1,470 calories left for my carbohydrates. And if you're going with a keto diet here, then, hey, that's not going to work. Okay, carbohydrates are the fuel for our workouts. And I don't care what anyone says about keto. Okay, look, if you're going to drive your car across town without any gas in the tank, how far do you think you're going to get? I can tell you right now, it's not very far. Okay, the same holds true for your workouts. Look, without a fuel source, you're going to be wiped out in no time. How fun do you think that workout's going to be? Look, it's not going to be fun at all, okay? All right, now, as we start looking at our sources for protein, this is a very specific preference for each person. Now, 80 to 90% of my protein comes from plant-based sources, okay? Beans are a pretty large part of that, as I'm consuming black, pinto, and kidney beans. I also consume a pretty large amount of quinoa every day. I'm not really big on dairy except yogurt, and I go with the 2% there to get some healthy fats in my body. Now, flax, chia, and hemp seeds add about another 30 grams of protein each day, along with some spinach and kale. Now, I consume 2 protein shakes per day. One is part of my pre-workout, and the other one is part of my post-workout meals. Now, look, not all protein powders are created the same. In fact, most have a large amount of added sugar to help improve that taste. Now, I use a pea protein, okay, where the only ingredient is pea protein. Now, look, this stuff tastes awful, okay, but it is extremely healthy. Now, I mix that with a grass-fed whey protein. Now, when it comes to your whey protein, you really want the isolate, okay? Now, again, I sacrifice taste for a very clean protein, okay, where the only ingredient is a grass-fed whey protein isolate. Now, if you do choose to go with an animal-based protein, that's fine, but be sure you're going with, grass-fed, pasture-raised, non-GMO as much as possible on those meat and dairy products. Now, as we get into carbohydrates, okay, often referred to as just carbs, okay, this is your body's primary energy source. Now, the 3 main types of carbohydrates are sugars, starches, and fiber, okay, and they're called either simple or complex based on, the basis of their chemical makeup and what your body does with them. Now, simple carbohydrates, they're composed of, easy to digest sugars, okay? Some of these sugars are, naturally occurring, such as in like a fruit, while we might have a refined or a processed sugar, which we're usually going to find in something like a baked good. Now, these simple carbs are, they're quickly absorbed into our bloodstream, and they can cause a spike in our blood sugar levels. Okay, then we have our complex carbohydrates, okay, which are found, in whole grains, and they have an additional component in fiber, okay, and that allows for the absorption of that carbohydrate to be slower into our bloodstream, okay, so it's not going to, spike our blood sugar levels the way that a simple carbohydrate does. Now, foods that contain simple carbohydrates, they aren't necessarily all bad, but it depends on the food. So, for example, fruit, right? That's going to contain a simple carb, okay? But they are drastically different from other foods that contain a simple carb, like, maybe a cookie or a cake. Now, foods with complex carbohydrates also, they're going to have more, important nutrients in there, in addition to that fiber, your vitamins, your minerals, okay? So then foods that are, containing a more simple carbohydrate, right? As long as you're choosing a whole grain over a processed one. For example, a whole wheat flour, a brown rice, and oatmeal, those are going to provide more nutrients than a processed grain, right? Like a white rice or maybe a bread that's made with a white enriched flour. Another thing here is don't neglect your sleep, okay? Training, getting our sleep and rest is very important because our muscles repair while we sleep. All right, so we talked about, building muscle and increasing that daily calorie expenditure, to help us get to where we need to be. Now, again, you've got a couple different avenues here because you can reduce your calories, you can starve yourself and lose weight, or you can add muscle, burn fat, and look, you can still enjoy some of your favorite foods, okay? But remember to set realistic expectations, and you have to have patience and consistency. Hey, please leave your comments as I work with people on their quest for better health. If you're looking for more programs that can help you out with that weight loss, nutrition, and your exercise goals, please follow me on YouTube and Instagram. Thank you.